year, the Joyce Ivy Foundation names a Leader of the Year. And in recent years, that has been Lucy Clark Doherty, who's Vice President and General Counsel of General Motors North America. It's been Deanna Mulligan, who is CEO of Guardian Life Insurance and one of the few female CEOs of a Fortune 500. We've had some impressive women that we've been fortunate enough to have as our Leaders of the Year. We try to identify women who are tremendously accomplished in their professional lives, in their own educational paths. We try to seek women who are active members of the community and active in actually creating opportunities for others who are kind of coming up behind them. And we also really search for women who have also had life paths and trajectories that are similar to what we hope for the Summer Scholars. So to steal a term from Laverne Cox, we want them, these Leaders of the Year, to be possibility models for our young women and our Summer Scholars. We are very fortunate to have Lisa Payne as our 2014 Leader of the Year. Lisa is Vice Chairman and Chief Financial Officer at Taubman. She has been part of that senior management team for the past 17 years. Prior to that, she served as Vice President of Goldman Sachs' investment banking division. Lisa commits an enormous amount of time and energy to other community endeavors. She serves on the board of trustees of the Cranbrook Educational Community, as well as the board of the Henry Ford and Care House, which is an organization that provides support and programming for children and families that are survivors of abuse and neglect. And in these community roles, Lisa is very quick to assess, okay, what needs to be done, and then I'm gonna dig in. She doesn't need to be front of the house, is what I've discovered. She is very happy to be behind the scenes and understands that time and effort and energy behind the scenes, that is often the lifeblood of what keeps small organizations up and running. And she is willing to be that kind of individual who is often doing those less glorious things at the other end. She is strong at rallying community and others behind causes that she believes very deeply in. Now, Lisa actually didn't grow up in the Midwest, but she ultimately found her way here, which we're pleased about. She was raised in a small town in Pennsylvania and went to Elizabethtown College on a full scholarship, and then really pushed that comfort zone beyond Pennsylvania. She did her MBA at Duke University, and then pushed that comfort zone again and again in her professional life. And you're going to hear more from Lisa about this. But I think what has been striking to me is I think there's a grit and an easy confidence about Lisa that I think when you meet her, she's very straightforward. But I think there is a bravery, honestly, and a kind of quiet courage that comes from, I know what I'm able to do. And when I'm feeling that it's time to push that comfort zone again, being brave enough to actually do that and to never feel as though one is getting quite too comfortable. So Summer Scholars, you will remember that on your applications, we asked you to write an essay on, you're gonna risk a lot to go this summer. What scares you about the idea of this summer? What really excites you about the possibility that you will be doing this? What makes you really nervous about it? And I think you're gonna find a great deal of inspiration in Lisa and that risk-taking as you get ready and think about, my gosh, I need to get on that plane or in that car in a couple of months or in a couple of weeks, and I'm not quite sure what's going to be on the other end. Now, I talked about how when we select Leaders of the Year, we are seeking women who professionally, educationally are accomplished, are active in their communities, but it's also very important to us that these are real people. Very grounded, real people who are committed in their professional lives, but are also very committed to their family and their friends. And for those of you who know Lisa well, you know she's a fabulous host to have and gatherings, that she is a terrific friend, that I've heard her integrity mentioned again and again. I have been in Lisa's presence when one of her daughters has called on the phone, and I am amazed by the about face that this woman will do to make sure that she is absolutely then in mom mode. And it feels very important to us, I think, with the various conversations that are going on about superwomen and leaning in, Wonder Women, all of these things, that we give you a possibility model of someone who really sees the value in trying to seek that balance. I think balance is a tricky thing to find, but for us to put up a possibility model of someone who really is committed to seeking to do that juggling act one way or the other. And this is very, very much true for Lisa. And I've actually asked someone who knows a little bit more about these other sides and has witnessed more of this to help me in wrapping up this introduction. So Aditi, if you will come up and help me.
I'm Aditi. I'm a summer scholar, and I'm going to Brown this summer. And it was nearly 5 years ago when I first met Lisa Payne's younger daughter, Margaret Payne, who's actually here today. And it was the first day of 6th grade, and I was the new girl at school. And I was really nervous and kind of lonely, but she approached me with a friendly smile and asked if I wanted to be her partner for the activity we were doing. And to this day, she's still my best friend. And I'm grateful that not only did I get to know her, but I also got to meet her inspirational mother. And I'm very lucky that I got to meet her, because I quickly learned that the way Margaret welcomed me that first day with a warm heart and open arms is exactly the kind of thing that Lisa Payne stands for. The thing that amazes me most about Miss Payne is how she always manages to influence the people around her in the most positive way possible. I see it, of course, most evidently through Margaret, who's my best friend, and her elder daughter, Katie, who's a senior this year, and she's also my soccer team captain. So I've seen her leadership skills in action. And it's evident through them that Miss Payne truly values the things that are most important in life, which are friendship, hard work, modesty, and fun. And she knows how to lead by example. She doesn't just preach that you should be a good person or that you should work hard. She shows her daughters that this is what you have to do to get where you want to be. She also has good morals, and knows how to teach them to her daughters, also by example, which is a great thing to have, and especially now in the crazy teenage years, you never really know what's going to happen in high school and even on beyond. She's a great role model and leader, which her daughters have again learned from her, with Katie Payne being varsity captain of not just 1 or 2 sports, but 3 sports, and Margaret Payne winning the Coaches Award for volleyball in her freshman year, which means she really exemplified the kind of person her coach wanted her to be as a teammate and as a person and as a friend. Miss Payne is very well-grounded, I've noticed, for someone as successful as she. And she also knows how to have fun. She loves going biking for these ridiculously long amounts of miles. I don't know how she does it. And skiing on the Black Diamonds of Telluride, Colorado. She also every year throws a Halloween party where she gets all dressed up. And let me tell you, she doesn't just put on one little wimpy witch's hat. She goes all out with a full-length gown and face paint and a fake nose, and she's always so eager to greet everyone who comes to her door. She has a way of managing everything around her while still being engaged, kind, and friendly, which I'm sure are the qualities that earned her the success Caroline was talking about and which she will talk about herself in a moment. In general, I mostly know Miss Payne via her relationship with her daughters and how considerate she is towards me whenever I'm around. I am your honorary 3rd daughter. So without further ado, I am honored to be a summer scholar and so excited that Miss Payne is our Leader of the Year. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Payne, Vice Chairman and CFO of Taubman, an awesome mom, and a woman I greatly admire.
First, I have to do a photo. All right. Wow is all I can say. My boss, Bobby Taubman's here, and he gave me who has handkerchiefs, right? So he gave me a handkerchief because I said, I'm gonna probably cry sometime during this talk. Little did I know that tears were gonna come to my eyes when I got introduced. I mean, oh my goodness, what am I gonna say after that? Thank you, Aditi. So first, I wanna thank Joyce Ivy Foundation for this recognition. I can't tell you how proud I am to be your 2014 Leader of the Year, and I'm especially pleased to be with you this evening and to address this amazing group of summer scholars. Now, I understand that the Summer Scholars class come from 6 Midwestern states, and 2 of those states are now represented in the room tonight. So before I share my thoughts, I thought I'd kind of get you all relaxed, and I'd like to have you kind of share your state spirit. So when I name out the state, let's hear applause from those of you from that state, and I'm going to first start with Ohio. Who's from Ohio? It's great. And now Michigan. Who's from Michigan? Wow. Now, that's the only 2. There are, I understand, those from, I think there's Minnesota, Nebraska, Missouri, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight. But thank you all for coming. Now, as I was listening to each of you come up and introduce your friend, I noticed, I said, I wondered how many of you, this was the first time you stood in front of a room of, I don't know, there's kind of 200, 250 people. Probably the first time. And I don't know how it made you feel, but my bet is it made you feel a little uncomfortable, a little out of your comfort zone. Well, that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I want to focus a little bit on what it means to be out of your comfort zone. And as I was preparing my talk, I noticed this powerful sentence on the home page of the Joyce Ivy Foundation website. And this is what it says: "We believe in the transformative power of educational experiences that stretch comfort zones and raise aspirations. For young women looking ahead to the rest of their lives, looking to become leaders, I can't think of better advice than to encourage the stretching of comfort zones and the raising of aspirations. You have probably already stretched your comfort zone a bit when you applied for this summer program. As an example, for 20% of the scholars, as I think Carolyn said, of this year's 80 scholars, 20% of this year's 80 scholars, you will be the first in your family to go to college. Good for you. And because while comfort zones are, let's say, comfortable, they can also limit horizons and stifle growth. Looking back over my life, the paths that I've taken, I've learned over and over again that in life and business, if you don't stay open to change, your comfort zone can become a danger zone. In so many ways, I am like each of you in this room tonight. I have been where you are now. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as Caroline said, a very comfortable place. For those of you who've never been to Lancaster, it's a small city of about 50,000 people on the Conestoga River in south central Pennsylvania. It's in the heart of the Amish country. You may remember from your American history lessons that the Conestoga wagon, manufactured in Lancaster, was the vehicle of choice of our country's pioneers heading west to start a new life in the 1800s. You could think of the Conestoga wagon as the Winnebago or minivan of the 19th century. Among Lancaster's most famous citizens were James Buchanan, the 15th President of the United States, Civil War-era abolitionist Thaddeus Stevens, he was played by Tommy Lee Jones in the movie Lincoln, if you remember, and Robert Fulton, who is credited with inventing the steamboat. I actually lived outside of Lancaster in a smaller town of about 2,000 people called Strasburg, and it was home of the Strasburg Railroad. I lived with my mom, my dad, my older brother, and younger sister. Neither one of my parents, both, by the way, who are still alive, I'm happy to say, neither one of them went to college, but both are smart and very resourceful. My mother worked in our high school library, and after attending beauty school, she cut hair in our house for extra money. My dad worked in a factory that manufactured watch faces and ended up being president of this small company before he retired. I did well in my studies in high school. I had a pretty serious boyfriend who had use of a pickup truck on weekends with a very good radio, and I made some spending money being a hotel maid, a lifeguard, and a waitress. And when I thought about my future, I figured I would go right to work as a secretary after graduation. I typed about 100 words a minute, and still do, by the way. It's a good skill to have. At the time, those were all comfortable thoughts to me. Those were my aspirations. But my parents very much wanted me to go to college. And in my senior year, I developed an interest in becoming an occupational therapist. I thought that that profession would be a great way to help people and make a difference in their lives. So I applied to 2 colleges that had occupational therapy majors. One was Ithaca College in central New York, and the other was a school of about 1,900 students 20 miles from my home called Elizabethtown College, south of Hershey, Pennsylvania, for those who like chocolate. I got a full academic scholarship to Elizabethtown. And once I got there and was in my major, I decided to set my sights higher, and I switched to pre-med. I have to admit that I studied constantly. I had a pretty good GPA, but I struggled in some of my pre-med courses. For those of you going to pre-med, I respect you a lot. Medicine did not come easy to me. So when I was a senior, I began to have some doubts about my ability to fund my medical school, so I took an elective in accounting. I remember sitting in this accounting class one day and saying, wow, I really understand this. And I said, wow, it's a lot easier than organic chemistry. So my new plan, my new aspiration, was to apply to business school to be a hospital administrator. I wouldn't be a doctor, but I thought I'd still be involved in healthcare and would be helping people every day. I got up the courage to apply to Duke University's Fuqua School of Business and was fortunate enough to be accepted with a full academic scholarship. I didn't know much about Duke, other than it had a good graduate business school, and I had the ability to concentrate in hospital administration. Duke was about 350 miles away from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in Durham, North Carolina. That was farther away from home than I had ever been, in more ways than one. Well, I won't take you through my 2 years at business school, other than to point out that I had a terrific internship at First Union National Bank in North Carolina, and my plans changed again. I graduated with an MBA rather than master's in hospital administration, and I decided to focus my career on banking, which is a lot different than being a secretary or an occupational therapist or a doctor or a hospital administrator. I got offers to work in a lot of great regional banks, including Pittsburgh National Bank, not too far from home. But I'd received no offers from New York, which was the banking capital of the world. But that was okay. I figured it would be best for me to work my way to the Big Apple. Get comfortable first before taking a bigger step. And then I got a call from a friend of mine who had heard that Chemical Bank, one of the largest commercial banks in the world, was recruiting for a position in their credit training program in New York. He encouraged me to give it a shot, which I did, and I got the job. Now, New York is light years from Lancaster or Durham, and I learned right away that I had a lot to learn about a lot of things, including how to dress. This was the 1980s, and when I showed up that first day in September 1982, I thought I looked really sharp. So picture this. I'm in my wool suit jacket with massive shoulder pads, a bow tie, a little pleated skirt, and flat Papagalo shoes. I don't know if anybody knows about Papagalo shoes, but they're like really boring flat shoes. Within a few weeks, I figured it out with the help of a colleague of mine in the credit training program named Karen Phillips. Thank goodness she saw something in me, a trait she called spunky, and gave me good advice as I reinvented my wardrobe on a very limited budget. She is still one of my best friends today. So over the next 5 years at Chemical Bank, I worked my way up to vice president in their corporate banking real estate department, and I was feeling, you guessed it, very comfortable. But then something made me question my future at the bank. During an annual performance review, my supervisor said, "Lisa, you're really smart, but you can't sell your way out of a paper bag." Well, that really got to me because, I knew I could sell. In fact, I wasn't really sure I was that smart, but I knew I could really sell. And it bothered me that my supervisor had such a different opinion about my capabilities. So it made me think about whether I was really fitting into the culture of the bank. People would often ask me why I regularly worked past 6:00 p.m. I began to see that I was probably more hard driving than most of my colleagues. I came to the conclusion that I may have had a false sense of comfort and that change might be good. So during a dinner with the same friend that gave me the hint about Chemical Bank, I learned that he also had a connection at Goldman Sachs, this investment banking firm. Well, talk about a different culture. Hard driving is an understatement. Trust me, there was and still is no more aggressive investment banking environment on the face of the earth than at Goldman Sachs. But was I up to it? I put myself out there and I got an interview. Actually, 2 full days of interviews as they sized me up for the job. In the last interview with Ken Brody, he was head of the real estate department at Goldman Sachs, things were not looking very good. I will never forget the pointed question he put to me. "Lisa," he said, "you went to Duke. Why should we hire you?" Talk about trying to make someone feel uncomfortable. Duke is a great school, but at that time didn't really have a reputation in their business school. But the halls of Goldman Sachs are teeming with top alums from Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, and Columbia, schools like the ones you will be going to this summer. Rarefied air. But without hesitation, I fearlessly answered, "Mr. Brody, you should be so lucky as to hire me. And I can promise you I will work harder than any other person at Goldman Sachs." And it worked. I got the job. I spent the next 10 years at Goldman Sachs becoming a vice president in their firm's investment banking department. During that time, I learned and accomplished a lot and brought my wonderful first daughter, Katie, into the world, all while working harder than anyone else at Goldman Sachs. Even with all the long hours, things seemed very satisfying and comfortable. And then one night, after 6 months of never being home during the week in time to put my baby daughter to bed, I went to put her down in her crib, and she cried and cried at the top of her lungs until her father tucked her in. Standing in her room that night, with tears in my eyes, I almost could cry right now, I realized that my hard-driving focus on being the hardest worker at Goldman Sachs had thrown my work-life balance seriously out of whack. That was anything but a comfortable feeling. And then I learned from a headhunter who goes and finds people jobs that shopping center developer Taubman Centers was searching for a new chief financial officer to replace a very well-regarded Michigander named Bernard Winograd, who was leaving the company to pursue a job at Prudential. I, of course, knew of Taubman. Their history of leadership in retail real estate was well known, and the role they played with their initial public offering in 1992 changed the face of commercial real estate in the United States. The Taubmans were longtime clients of Goldman Sachs and had a reputation for being savvy, demanding, but honest. Just between you and me, Robert Taubman was known in some investment banking circles as a bit of a screamer. He could be very tough on investment bankers, consultants, and advisors. I won't say any more because he's sitting right over there, but I can see he's smiling. So I told this headhunter that he was crazy and I had no interest in moving to Michigan or working for the Taubmans. Fortunately, the headhunter persisted and I agreed to meet with Robert Taubman one day when we were both in Chicago on business. Far from being a screamer, Bobby, as everyone calls him, focused entirely on what I cared about, my family, how I worked with people, and what I wanted to accomplish in the next chapter of my life. He didn't ask me about Goldman Sachs. We talked much more about life, how I was raised, and what were my core values. That's totally opposite from a typical job interview where you usually go through your educational experience and all your work and all your business experience. Truth be told, I think he hired me that day more because I put myself through college than because of my pedigree at working at Goldman Sachs, right?
Yes.
I learned a lot about Bobby that day and came to grips with the fact that the job would require relocating my family from New York to Michigan. But I have to tell you, for a girl from Lancaster, PA, who loves shopping and wanted to spend some quality time with her daughter, getting away from 15 years of hailing cabs and getting home past midnight, this sounded really refreshing. That was 17 years ago, hard to believe, 17 years ago, and I couldn't be happier with my decision to come to Michigan and become part of Taubman. Just so you don't get the idea that we at Taubman Centers are afraid to stretch comfort zones and raise aspirations, I should point out that during my tenure at the company, we have fought off a hostile takeover by our largest competitor. We've weathered the Great Recession. We've developed over 10 million square feet of new retail space, completed a total restructuring of our debt, and extended our business to Asia. Talk about being willing to travel far from home. This was it. In fact, it's hard to think of an industry more impacted by change than retailing. The internet is reason that we cannot be complacent. Retailers are responding to online shopping, pursuing omni-channel strategies to connect with their customers, and we are seeing that for the best retailers, bricks and mortar, their stores, are a central part of their strategy, so we are confident that the mall is going to flourish way into the future. The mall is not dead. Shoppers and retailers are changing, and we have to stay one step ahead to protect our assets. A couple of examples: we offer free Wi-Fi now in our malls, and we're adding more restaurants and entertainment offerings to emphasize the social aspect of shopping. Real estate is a very entrepreneurial business, and I have found that entrepreneurs abhor status quo. In fact, to them, the status quo is another name for comfort zone. The most frightening thing to them is that risk is not risk. It's if they're willing, they need to be willing to take risk. Alfred Taubman, who is our founder, Bobby's father, said in his memoir, Threshold Resistance, and he writes, "Entrepreneurs often see staying put as a more risky proposition than moving on. They see the benefit of creating their own paths." I don't think anyone ever expressed this better than the Spanish poet Antonio Machado, who wrote, "Traveler, there is no path. Paths are made by walking." When you applied for and became a summer scholar, you started your own path. And if my life is an example, the paths you take from this point on will be exhilarating, but not even close to being straight or predictable. So to help you stay the course, let me end by offering you a few pointers. First, never be afraid to fail. And when you do, learn from it and confidently move on to better things. I don't think I would have made a very good occupational therapist. Trust in friends. They appear in your life at the craziest times to alert you to new opportunities and open new doors. Sometimes they even help you select a new wardrobe. Be fearless in your pursuit of your dreams. If someone asks you in an interview why they should hire you, tell them they'd be lucky to have you. And if they invite you in, deliver beyond their expectations. Always recognize the inherent dignity in people and learn to deal with different personalities. Honestly, I learned as much about people when I was a lifeguard and a waitress in Lancaster as I did when I was an investment banker on Wall Street. And I actually use those skills more today than I do what I learned at Duke. Trust your gut. Follow your instincts, whether it be joy or tears that enter your life as inspiration. I don't think my gut has ever let me down. When you hear those inner words, "That's for me," go for it. Be as proud of where you came from as you are of where you are going. In so many ways, New York has nothing over Lancaster, Detroit, or your hometown. My brother, sister, and parents still live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they're doing great. Value work-life balance. It is very important. Someone once told me that life is like a series of rolling waves. I think this is particularly true for women. Early in my career, I was riding the career wave, and I really had to put everything into developing my reputation and my skills. When my children were young, I definitely rode the baby wave and really put my family time ahead of my career. Now, as my children are older, I would say I'm able to balance both pretty evenly, and I'm even able to add to it a bit of charitable and non-for-profit work that I find very, very rewarding. And it has been very important to me to work for a company like Taubman that understands the need for these trade-offs and provide women the ability to balance their family and their career. Figure out what is important to you. While I truly loved every minute of my time at Goldman Sachs, at the end of my tenure, I felt pretty empty and realized that being a mother was going to be much more fulfilling than being the best real estate investment banker on Wall Street. When asked what I'm most proud of, I can say without missing a beat, raising two amazing, see I have my napkin, raising two amazing young women, Katie and Margaret. Margaret is here with me today, probably blushing with my comments, and I know my girls are going to impact the world in much bigger ways than their mother. Their core values, faith, and kindness wow me every day. And finally, in closing, make sure you have fun along the way. It's exciting to develop what's around the bend, and there has never been a time in history with more opportunity and promise for women. Look at the many amazing role models that you have. Mary Barra, first woman CEO of an auto company. Hillary Clinton, one of only 3 female Secretary of States and potentially the first woman to run in a presidential election. Oprah Winfrey, queen of all media and the greatest black philanthropist in American history. And Sonia Sotomayor, the first Hispanic Supreme Court Justice, just to name a few. So, thank you again, Joyce Ivy, and congratulations, all of you Summer Scholars. What an impressive group of young ladies. And thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone, raising your aspirations, and making your own paths. Have fun this summer and enjoy the journey. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you very much for those inspiring words. It's my pleasure to wrap us up here tonight. And so first, let me say thank you again to all of those who helped put this together tonight. Secondly, I want to thank all of the scholars who were able to attend and those who weren't, and probably most importantly to your parents who've helped you get to where you are here today. Last, I'd want to thank those who've supported the Joyce Ivy Foundation and made this possible. And as one who is the treasurer, I would be remiss if I didn't say, tell all of your friends. If you have rich friends, tell them twice about this. You may donate through our website. So please, we appreciate the support, and it allows us to do the things that we have done here today.